So we've basically been staring at the exact same rectangular piece of glass for, what, 17 years now? It's the same shape, same format, same compromises. For almost 2 decades, that flat, black slab in your pocket seemed like the ultimate, final form of personal tech. But today, we're unpacking exactly why the era of the flat smartphone is quietly coming to an end in this explainer.
Now, think about this. What if the phone in your pocket right now, yeah, the one you probably just spent good money upgrading not too long ago, what if it's already obsolete? I mean, look around next time you're on a train or in the office. Literally everyone is holding that same rectangular slab. It feels permanent, right? But behind the scenes, there is a massive technological shift unfolding, pun absolutely intended there. And if you miss this shift, you're going to look back in 5 years and wonder how you didn't see it coming.
Okay, but before we get ahead of ourselves, let's talk about this number, 1.6%. That is the global foldable market share for 2025. Just 1.6%. It is a totally tiny sliver of the market. So the big question is, why on earth is every major analyst, every research firm, and the biggest tech giants in the world betting the farm on a category that's frankly so incredibly small right now? Well, it's because something has fundamentally shifted beneath the surface. And to really get what that is, we've got to look at exactly how we got here.
Which brings us to Section 1, the smartphone stagnation, from the disasters of 2019 to where we are today.
All right, cast your mind back to 2019. You might remember Samsung launching the original Galaxy Fold. The hype was absolutely huge, but within literally 48 hours of reviewers getting their hands on it, screens were snapping, they were peeling, just completely dying. It was a very public and very expensive disaster. And because of that, moving between 2022 and 2024, market growth totally stalled out at a flat 3%. In 2025, we actually even saw a slight dip. It's been like this really slow, faint heartbeat for the industry. But, here's the fascinating thing about technologies that nearly die. Sometimes they come back so much stronger, just because the engineers refuse to quit. They just redefine the problem. And right now, we're seeing 3 massive forces converging to make foldables basically inevitable.
Let's look at force number 1 in Section 2, solving the hardware and how the crease is conquered.
So think of a foldable display kind of like a really thin croissant. It's made up of these distinct, super thin layers. You've got the OLED panel, the ultra-thin glass, a crazy complex hinge mechanism, and a polymer base layer. Now, when you physically bend this device, every single one of those layers naturally wants to deform at a totally different rate. And that structural mismatch, that is exactly what created the dreaded crease. You know the one, that ugly line right down the middle of the screen that early adopters just kind of had to live with.
For the longest time, we just accepted that flaw. It was sort of the industry tax. Samsung, Google, Motorola, they all gave it a shot, but the crease was always there. It was just the cost of doing business if you wanted a folding phone. But then, the massive leap happened. We started seeing these modern, totally re-engineered solutions, like Oppo, who completely changed the mechanics with what they call a water drop hinge. So when the phone folds, the screen actually tucks into this tiny teardrop-shaped cavity inside the hinge, which widens the bend radius and spreads out all that physical stress. Get this, after 400,000 fold cycles, their visible crease measures just 0.03 millimeters. It is practically invisible. And it actually goes even further. Samsung Display has now cooked up a new panel using a laser-drilled metal backing plate that disperses stress so perfectly, they are officially calling it a crease-free foldable OLED. So we literally went from screens dying in 2 days to, wait, what crease? In just 6 short years.
Which naturally leads us to Section 3. The price wall cracks, breaking the 1,980 barrier. Now, for years, foldables were stuck in this really bizarre economic stasis. You had all this flagship-level innovation, but you were paying double the flagship price for it. I mean, the original Galaxy Z Fold back in 2019, that was $1,980. Fast forward 6 whole years to the Galaxy Z Fold 7 in 2025, and it's $1,999. There was basically zero price movement for over half a decade. But the projection for 2026 tells a totally different story. Chinese manufacturers, we're talking Honor, Huawei, Xiaomi, they are aggressively, relentlessly driving these costs down. Analysts are projecting that these Chinese OEMs are going to push the foldable price point all the way down to $999 in 2026. And guys, that is a massive psychological threshold. Because at $999, a foldable phone stops being this luxury toy for wealthy tech enthusiasts, and it finally starts being a real, everyday option for the average smartphone buyer.
And that sets the stage perfectly for Section 4, the Apple effect, and market permission granted.
Okay, this is wild. According to IDC,
When Apple finally decides to step into the foldable category, their very first device is projected to instantly capture 22% of the entire foldable market share, day one. 22% from a product that currently doesn't even exist. In the industry, this is what we call permission. See, when Apple enters a brand new category, millions of everyday consumers who were maybe sitting on the fence suddenly feel safe to follow. The entire category gets validated. It gets taken seriously. Suddenly, accessory makers jump in, app developers finally optimize their apps, and the whole ecosystem just accelerates overnight.
And because of this crazy convergence, the hardware getting solved, the prices dropping, and Apple looming on the horizon, IDC is forecasting a massive 29.7% year-on-year growth in foldable sales for 2026 alone. Omdia, they're even more bullish, predicting an enormous 50% jump in shipments. So yeah, we are no longer talking about some quirky niche category stuck at a 1.6% market share. We are looking at a full-blown mainstream acceleration.
But we gotta keep it real here. Let's look at Section 5, the unspoken catch, because friction points definitely still remain.
Right, let's quickly fire through the real-world drawbacks here, because it's not all sunshine. First up, unoptimized software. The hardware is getting amazing, sure, but a ton of apps still just awkwardly stretch out when you open that beautiful wide inner screen. It's a daily friction point for sure. Second, price. Yeah, Chinese OEMs are dropping prices, but Apple's first foldable, rumors are putting it somewhere between $2,000 and $2,500. So for most of us, that is still a totally aspirational purchase. Definitely not your standard upgrade. Third, there's the sustainability factor. Foldables just use more rare earth minerals, they've got way more complex components, and historically, they have shorter lifespans than our trusty traditional slabs. And lastly, real-world durability. The lab tests with the robot arms look great, but these devices still rely on mechanical, moving parts. And let's be honest, we live in a real world where people are constantly dropping their phones on concrete and walking around with shattered screens.
So breaking down the reality of the market right now, who's actually winning? Right now, the winners are the power users, the executives, the hardcore tech enthusiasts. If you're someone who genuinely needs both a tablet and a phone in your pocket and you want that massive productivity boost from multi-window workflows or hands-free video calls, you are absolutely winning today. But who's waiting in the wings? Well, mid-range consumers are still getting squeezed out by those high entry costs. And sustainability advocates are totally right to question the environmental footprint of these things. So the mainstream, they're still largely chilling in the waiting room.
So where does that leave us? Let's dive into Section 6, the unfolded future. Where exactly do we go from here?
Well, if we map out the next 5 years, the roadmap accelerates fast. In 2026, Apple is expected to enter the market and Samsung is projected to push the envelope even further with a wild tri-fold device. Then as we move into 2027 and 2028, we hit the real magic window. That's when sub-$800 foldables are expected to finally hit the shelves. Guys, that is standard flagship Galaxy S-Class pricing for a device that is simultaneously your everyday phone and your tablet. And by 2029, foldables are projected to reach between 5 and 7% of the global market share. And when we hit that specific milestone, a fundamental shift in consumer psychology is going to happen.
Because think about it. When you can walk into a store and get a foldable for the exact same price as a traditional slab, you really have to ask yourself, why buy a flat phone? For 20 years, we have optimized our entire digital lives around the constraint of a piece of glass that simply couldn't bend. We accepted the flat rectangle because, well, it was the best we could do. But foldables remove that constraint completely. They give you a device that is exactly as big or as small as whatever the moment demands. Now, the mainstream moment isn't 100% here today, but the foundation is totally laid. So I want to leave this with you. What would it actually take for you to make the switch? Is it hitting that sub-$800 price point? Is it waiting for better software? Or is the trusty flat slab just perfectly fine for what you need? Think about it, because ready or not, the foldable revolution is already unfolding. Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.